So your name was Roshan before?
Roshan before, yes.
Okay. How did you manage to have the thought of becoming a priest?
Because the priest that I was giving my personal things that I was sharing, I legit remember he told me that if you have a you cannot be gay.
When was the first starting point when you started discussing it with the family?
I just made up my mind. I'm like, tomorrow, whatever happens, let it happen. I'm going to drop them a text. So in the family WhatsApp group, like a 2-paragraph I wrote. And the very next day I woke up and my mom was very much worried actually. She called me and she was like, don't take it. So Hijra is all about the culture that they have. And they have this Guru Chela system. So Guru Chela system is basically trans people are sometimes more susceptible to violence more than a cis woman. So there is an ALSA judgment which has also come up. If a trans person is being raped or being sexually harassed, imprisonment is not for a long duration, it's just for 2 years or something. But versus if that is done for a woman, it's for 5 years. There is also this saying, no, God made Adam and Eve, but not Adam and Steve. That's where I would strongly say that homosexuality was denied by the church. We have been discriminated by the church. I'm not asking you to put rainbow flags in the church. At least bring trans people and LGBTQ people in your prayers of the faithful. You know the texts in the Bible that are there, the Sodom and Gomorrah, which in a way determines and interprets that homosexuality is denied, it's a sin. But again, there is a wrong interpretation or the distortion of the text. Sodom and Gomorrah is not about homosexuality, it's more about the
Hello everyone, welcome again to the Inspiring Heart Show. And today I'm very glad and happy that we have a very inspirational woman on the show today. We have Miss Rochelle, hailing all the way from Mangalore, but currently working at Godrej in Mumbai. Rochelle, warm welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, brother.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling alive. I'm feeling nice to be here in the seminary. Once again, coming back to my home, sort of. I'm feeling really great.
Yeah, I'll come back to that home aspect later.
Yes.
But in the world that filled with chaos and in the country that we live in, which is very divided in the name of caste, creed, religion, and amidst that chaos, one of the issues that is not been addressed is LGBTQ plus community. And you hail from that community. The journey must not have been easy, but I see you very loving, caring, very affectionate, very optimistic. You have very optimistic outlook towards life, and it did not come all of a sudden. How has been the journey? How was the initial days like?
I think when you say you are very optimistic, you're very lively as a person, I really feel this has come from my values, from my family, from my mom, from my dad, from my family, from my siblings. So as in childhood, yes, we are like 6 members in the family, my mom, dad, and we are like 4 siblings, all 4 brothers. Now they have a sister, but we were always there for each other. Very loving family, very much regular to church, very much devoted to church activities and all that, and at the same time, I was very much inclined towards, when it comes to me as a kid, I always loved wearing my mom's clothes. There were instances as a child where my parents used to in the afternoons everyone used to sleep and the house was almost silent. There was no much there, so I was always looking for those times, and I was going inside my room and wearing mom's dupatta or mom's lipstick, and those were the instances which made me feel more complete as a person. I would always grab those things what my mom used to wear and I would wear it myself. That those were the times where I would feel more powerful, feel more identified as someone. But that remained just in the rooms, in the spaces where I was not able to show it off outside, right? And these aspects, in a way, my mom, dad came to know, okay, I dress up, I used to wear lipstick and all that. And so once there was a banter that happened. As I told you, we are very much close to the nuns and priests. So the sisters used to come to my house, and there was one sister, and they were all talking about all these things, that Roshan, he wears all these things, and they were laughing about it. It was a fun thing.
So your name was Roshan before?
Roshan before, yes. So they were talking about all this, and then the sister also was also talking. And when she looked at me and she asked me, "Do you want to become a girl?" And when she asked me that question, I thought it was a very important question. Like, I thought that was a very serious question. That means me as a child, I thought there is a possibility for me to change my gender in the childhood days only. And when she asked that question, I, wholeheartedly, gracefully said yes in front of everyone
Without realizing it was fun.
without realizing it was fun. And as soon as I said yes, everyone in the room started laughing. They thought I added on to the banter, I added on to the joke. And that day I realized it's really not possible for me to become a woman or to lead a life of a woman or to become a girl eventually. It's definitely not possible. And that remained as a play. Maybe that remained as a play where I can only do these things only in the secrecy of my mom's room, but I can't do it in public. I can't express it, my identity, in public. So I went on with life. School days happened. I was in a all boys school. Things went on. And as soon as I finished, I mean, in school, there is a lot of bullying. There's a lot of uh, I used to get all the slurs of a trans person, in Hubli. I did my schooling in Hubli and everything. So I used to get those slurs and everything, but I was able to manage. I was able to, I had no other option, because you can't tell these things to your parents also sometimes, because you are supposed to be strong as a man. You're supposed to be courageous as a boy, So those notions that are there in the society were also taught for the young boys also. And we are again four sons in the house, so you can't really bring these up on your dining table and talk about it, right? So just opposite to my school, there was a women's girls school and boys school. So had a road in between, and these boys were looking at the girls outside, and they were waiting for their girlfriends. They were talking about their girlfriends, but I was not able to relate to that. I was not having an attraction towards the girls, or that thrill that these boys had. They were talking about cars, they were talking about bikes, they were talking about, Hrithik Roshan, the way he builds up his muscles and all. I don't know if they were gay or something. If that was the case, I'm happy. But otherwise, those boy talks and all, I was not able to relate very strongly. Honestly, I couldn't relate to them. But I thought, okay, maybe I'm different, and I was very much confused as a child. Yeah, I'm different. And I don't really understood myself more. So those were my adolescent days where I was constantly questioning myself, constantly going through this this thought of what is happening to me, why it is happening to me, and why it is not happening to my other friends. So those were the things that were always coming up in my mind as a kid.
What were your fascinations like?
So whenever we used to watch movies, I was always looking at the woman in the screen. I want to dress up like her, or if there's a song that's running, I imagine myself to be the woman. I imagine myself to be the Kareena Kapoor. I imagine myself to be Priyanka Chopra. These are something that made me feel complete. These are the something that I could identify myself as more than other. That's how the dynamic works. That's how gender dynamic works. You conform yourself in a way that you resonate with a person. You don't resonate just because you're assigned a sex at birth. You resonate with the ideology or with the identities that are there on the screen, and you feel that this is what I am also. So I could resonate more with the actresses on the screens than the actors.
But you could never
I
share
could
this with anybody.
Exactly. I could never even have these conversations about it. Like, I couldn't talk this to my mom. I couldn't say this openly to my brothers. I couldn't say this to any of my friends, because that would also be add on. Ki, why do you feel that? That's again another story to discuss, because you know how the stigma is that, and you also know how a queer person, or a feminine person is, or a feminine man is also being depicted in the cinema. It has been depicted in our film industry in the very beginning. you know there are characters which appear to be very, like a comic figure. You don't find queer characters in the movies back then in the early 2000s, or even before that. They were not very much nobody would want to perceive to be looked as a queer narrator, as a queer person in the movie. For example, there's this queer woman, Bobby. So she was being featured in most of the Salman Khan movies and all that, and that was a comedy part that she played. But she was a queer person. She was a trans woman, and nobody, no man or no boy, wants to become like her. So you know how also the film industry is depicting the queer people in the film, and that's again a confusion for many queer people, for many trans people who would question themselves, who would feel very powerless, who would feel very confused and fragile and vulnerable, because I am feeling the same way, but I'm not able to express it because they'll make fun of me, they'll call me Bobby, or they'll call me, like a comedy person. So that's why we say film industry is such a strong weapon for anyone to change their mind, for anyone to bring a conversation, for a dialogue. And
And that is
we
also important how a film can have an impact on people.
correct, a film can impact people's thought process. It can challenge people's beliefs also.
Having that sort of childhood,
Yeah.
and you are and you were a Christian,
Yeah.
and you are also born in the society where it is not open. People are not receptive enough to speak about LGBTQ,
True.
leave alone LGBTQ, not even about any trans person.
Hmm.
Coming from that background, now I'm very interested to know how you managed to join a religious order. How did you manage to have the thought of becoming a priest?
Priest. That's a very interesting question, brother. That's actually, I myself sort of think like, how did I even do this? Like, how did I even thought of joining a religious life? So yeah, so as I went on in my life, so 10th standard happened, and after 10th, I was really so much done with this world. People were pursuing their PUC, and then people wanted to do their BCom, MCom, and all that. But I think now that I reflect back, I really feel it was an escape from the world. Like, because there was already so much of pressure for me to be the to perform the manhood thing. Now that I've studied in an all boys school, I was all like, we have three brothers at home. There was always this pressure for me to be a man, to embrace my masculinity and all that. And that is where I joined seminary in a form of escaping all these drama that was happening around. I really didn't wanted to get associated with those things at all. But at the same time, I wanted to just maybe cut off from the world. I wanted to maybe understand myself more better. I wanted to also strengthen my, now by religion the LGBTQ is also been denied by the church. Back then, at least in 2013, when I was in my 10th standard,
Now they are talking about it.
now we are talking about it. Now the narrative is slowly changing. The very fact that I'm sitting here, it's some changes is happening. But back then there was nothing like that. There was, in fact, it was a disgrace to be a queer person. It was a disgrace to even talk about homosexuality in the church, right? So that was a belief system that I had been brought up as well. So I was not having the space to express myself more better, and I think religious life was the only way through where I could be, maybe reflect more, maybe become straight. That now that I have had a inclination towards male attraction, and I think this is completely abnormal, this is completely not God's will. I want to maybe change my functional self. I want to become more straight, or I want to just remove, because it's a sin again. There is also this saying, no, God made Adam and Eve, but not Adam and Steve.
I watched that.
I know, right? So all these topics used to occur every time while I was a Roman Catholic kid, and these things were there, and that's where I would strongly say that homosexuality was denied by the church. We have been discriminated by the church, and that causes a lot of confusion, a lot of trauma for so many queer people, and I was one of them. And so back also, that's the only reason why I wanted to just cut off from the world. I wanted to come out of this. I really thought it was a disorder. I wanted to come out of this. I wanted to talk this out to some priest whom I can rely on, whom I can share my feelings, my fears, my vulnerability to someone, and maybe I would try to change that. That was one of my goals to join the seminary, and also maybe spiritually, if I'm focused spiritually into the spiritual text, and in the spiritual life, maybe my focus would also divert, and I would give more focus on my spiritual self rather than my sexual life or my
Bodiless.
identity. That was one of the reasons why I joined the seminary.
Now, in seminary, you have very rigorous practices. You are introduced into various aspects of life. You are being trained, you are being more self oriented to become other oriented.
True.
So, first, you train yourself. Is that what helped you to identify your true identity?
So, seminary life was, again, I really don't regret being a seminarian, joining the seminary back then. And yes, it gave me a lot of clarity for myself. It gave me a lot of spiritual path that I could build for myself. I have become closer to God. I understood the importance of God. I've understood the importance of, like how spiritual life can also change my life, can also change my perceptions in life. And I'm very much grateful. And but at the same time, there were a lot of challenges that I faced with regards to my identity, with regards to my sexuality, because again, these topics I could only discuss with the priest. These topics I could only discuss in while we have the colloquy with the priest, spiritual direction with the priest. And these topics were like a 90% occurrence, at least in my life. I would never discuss much about my family. I would never discuss much about my vocation, but I would discuss a lot about my identity. The major part of discussions were about my identity and my sexuality, and it was very difficult also, because now, sorry to say, but they were not the right direction that I've in a way received, because the priest that I was giving my, personal things that I was sharing, even they were trying to maybe make me straight, trying to convert me to straight. They were trying to say ki, I legit remember he told me that if you have a penis, you cannot be gay, you cannot fall in love with guys. That's the strong words that were come to me, and me as a 18-year-old child, it made a lot of questioning. It in a way, it made me feel so fragile. It made me feel so restricted and regressive that I cannot embrace myself. It made me look at sex and sexuality in a very ugly way. It gave me the ugly word for sex and sexuality, because I'm being considered as a, as very less of a human, that my sexuality and my identity is not worth to be discussed, and if I have this, I need to remove it. So that was a very strong notion that was given to me as a 18-year-old child, and that is the only age where we don't understand what's happening. We need the right knowledge, which I couldn't get it, right? So it brought a lot of trauma. There were also days where my spiritual director also told me that if you feel like a woman, start growing your beard. Start growing your beard. Try to look like a man. Walk like a man. There was a priest where once I was just walking on the corridor, and he stopped me and he told me to, can you please walk thoda like a man. So these things, it pricks you a lot. It pricked me a lot, and it also makes you feel that there is something wrong with me. I'm not a man. I'm not coming to the expectations of the man and the society and the religious life. So it also impacts. It also what you say, it also pricks your self-esteem. It pricks your confidence. And the same thing it did to me, as a seminarian as well. And those were the challenges that I was constantly facing. Those were the challenges that were everyday thing, a part of me. But I was able to manage it. I was able to handle it. And but at the same time, these were not discussed. These toxic masculinity concepts were only there, visible on the spaces, but these were not really discussed. These were not really been examined or observed among the seminarians. Until I took up psychology, until I took up literature as a subject, until I went into the St. Joseph's College and met so many different people who are normalizing these things, right? So that's where my journey in the seminary was. It was challenging a lot. At the same time, it was still helping me to grow more, understanding myself and grow more spiritually. But at the same time, there were a lot of these social battles that I was facing on a day-to-day basis.
When was the first starting point when you started discussing it with the family?
I came out to my mom and my whole family. So it was a very random come out. Completely, I never expected that I will do it. But so I went to one of my trans people's houses. I stayed there for the night, and looking at her family, she already she got those acceptance thing in her house. Her mom was so cool about her identity, and everyone were accepting her in her house, and things were so nice in her house. And then I felt that push to why not just tell it to my family. End of the day, I'm their child and they need to know about these things. And I made up my mind, and it was at night, 2:30 in the night, and I just made up my mind. I'm like, tomorrow whatever happens, let it happen. I'm going to drop them a text. And so in the family WhatsApp group, I just told them everything about me, like a 2 paragraph I've wrote, and I've sent them my recent photos and everything, and this is what I am. So I've considered myself as a woman, and my name has been changed to Rochelle, and everyone respects me in Godrej. Everyone calls me ma'am, and things are really great here. I've given them a life update. And then the very next day, I woke up, and messages and missed calls were flooded in my phone. And my mom was very much worried. Actually, she called me and she was like, "Don't take any decision. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you." And then I spoke to her on call, and she was like, "What happened? Why? What's happening? What is happening to you? What problems are you going through? Please tell me. We will solve it together." So she was very much concerned. She was very much worried about me. And it's very much valid for a mom to be worried about these things, because these are, again, it's another different level of trauma that a parent can go through also. And at the same time, I told her ki not to worry. This is what I always felt. But I did not have the chance to tell you. I did not have the right space to tell and talk to you about these things. And I made her understand, and she in a way understood ki okay, I'm in a way managing things. This is how it has been, and this is how people are looking at are seeing me also. And she knows that Godrej is a very inclusive organization. I've told her that my company is also allowing trans people. There are so many other trans people who are working with me, and we are all living together, we are all working together, so there's not a issue. So I convinced her in a way, and she told me, yeah, but just take care, like the world is not kind as you're thinking and all that. So it like that's how the maybe even now my mom is really not completely accepting me, and I think that's completely okay. I really don't want her to rush in the acceptance phase. It's first the denial that happens, and she's into that phase, right? And I'm completely okay with that. But at the same time, I'm very much. Sometimes there are few instances where my mom, she sees me as a woman, and that's slowly changing now. The way she's seeing me, the way she talks to me on a everyday. I call her every day, so on a every day-to-day call, there are some conversation that happens about my gender. There are some aspects that she only touches upon. And for example, the other day she was just calling me, and we had a phone call, and she was asking me, how are you managing your finances now? How are you managing all alone in Mumbai and all that? I told her, I'm able to manage, ma, that's not an issue. Then she's like, yeah, now you must have many expenses now that you've become a fashionable lady. So and when she says that, it feels so complete. Like your mom is now, she's in a way aligning her thought process to your life. She's in a way trying to respect what you're doing. She knows that now you're growing, you are having your own values, you are having your own experiences, and you're no longer the way that she wants you to be, right? So that's something that I really admire about my mom, the way she's taking it. And I'm very much for her to take it very slowly. And my other brothers, yes, there is again my other three brothers. One of my brother is very much accepting, and he's helping me also to transition, and he's being there as a support for me. But my other two brothers are still taking the time, and I completely, it doesn't bother me much. It's completely okay, because I don't have to justify my life to anyone. I don't have to be answerable to anyone. I think we are all supposed to live the life the way we always wanted to, and that's called being fully alive, fully human and fully
Fully,
alive.
right? Yes.
So that's what I'm doing. So it doesn't really bother me much.
Do you feel the reaction of your parents?
Hmm.
It's it's coming soulfully from them, Or do you think is it a societal construct that they are more afraid of society, what society is going to
It
think, or
is. I mean, it's very much the society. My mom is very much worried. She really doesn't have any problem me dressing up. She doesn't have any problem. Even today, she tells me if you want to dress up in the inskirts of the house. Just don't go outside because I'm worried what people will call you. I'm worried what how people will respect you. You know, these are the words she tells me. That means she's very much concerned about how people are treating a trans woman, and that's true. You know, the world is not kind. The world is not safe for a trans person. That's very much true, and that's also, so I get it very strongly when she is concerned and she is worried about me. That's where she's very much worried, and she doesn't wants me to in a way transition because the world is not safe, and she is very much worried of these angles. Otherwise, she's if the world was really accepting and if the space was very much trans friendly, I don't think my mom would have been so much worried.
it's nice to hear the bond between you and your mother. It is so moving. And everybody is not privileged like you. We can call in
Yeah.
many ways.
True.
People outside, when we look at, they have a lot of stereotypes about trans people, trans persons. In trains, in roads, in bus stops, people have phobia. You can take it in both the ways.
True.
Do you know how the community is built?
Yes.
Can you shed some light on it?
Yeah. So when a child is born, there can be now starting from the stages in the hospital when the baby has been delivered, there can be the doctor assigns male at birth or female at birth, right? We call them as AFAB. Also, that's assigned female at birth, or AMAB assigned male at birth. So those are the technicalities that are used. So when the child is born, there are also children, there are also kids where they have a different features in the genitalia, or they may not have the same features of a male child and the female child. There can be certain changes in the genitalia of the child when the child is born, and those are the intersex children. Okay? So when these intersex children are again born, the doctors could sometimes just label them as man, as a male child or a female child, and again there is no much visibility of these knowledge there also in the medical sciences, right? But of late again the syllabus is changing and things are changing, but back then there was nothing much visibly discussed or visibly being mandated that these things are also important, because it's a very small ratio again. So the doctors in a way show these children into the male category or the female category, but when the parents in a way come to know that the child is behaving different, the child has different features, the child has a genitalia more of a male but behaves like a female, the also the child during the stages of development, the child's brain also functions more of a feminine energy. The child has a feminine way of talking, the feminine way of walking, the feminine way of behaving, the similar way for a female having the masculine characteristics, and these have been observed by the parents. And when this happens, there are cases where parents themselves deny the child, they just put them in the garima graha. These are the hijra community houses, right? So the parents in a way disown the child, and they unfortunately the child goes to one of these houses in the trans community, in the hijra community, right? And these hijra community is very much prevalent in India and has been always prevalent in the India, right? In our country. So that is where the child comes there, and the trans people, the hijra community people, take care of these children. They raise them up, they train them how to be aggressive. Now we know that the world is not very much, you know what you are a hijra, you are a kinnar, so you are one of our biradari, you become one of our people, and we will take care of you, we will feed you, we will employ you. Now when it comes to employment, now you know that the very fact that the child has been disowned, there is a cut from education. There's no education, there's no access to education as easy as it would have been for a cis person, for a cis het person.
Can you explain what is a
What
cis
is a
person?
cis is basically it's the opposite of trans. So if you are born, a child is born and maybe the child has the genitalia of the male, so you're assigned male at birth because your sex is male and your gender becomes man.
So which means I am a cis person.
You are a cis person, you're a cis man. So basically your gender and your sex is been aligned. So your gender, your sex at birth is is being given by the doctor, and you identify as a man. Eventually, as you develop, you feel that yes, you are a man, so you become a cis man. Whereas if someone who is born as a man, but then eventually the doctor still assigns male at birth, but eventually during the stages of development, the person in the adolescent understands that I don't feel like a man, I don't feel aligned to the ideas or the notions of how a man should be in the society. I cannot be a man of the society, but I feel more wearing, carrying myself as a woman. I want to be seen as a woman. I perceive myself as a woman. Then my genitalia, my sex is not aligning with my gender. So that is a trans woman
So
or a
you are
trans
making a
person.
transition to a woman.
Exactly. You're
Okay,
making a transition into a woman, becomes a trans woman. Similarly, with a female born at birth, doctor assigns woman, female, a girl at birth, but then eventually develops and maybe feels more of a man. I feel that I'm not like a, I can't wear this feminine clothes. I don't resonate with the feminine energy of other women, but I could resonate with the man's energy, and eventually I want to identify as a man. That becomes a trans man, right? So in both the ways, these trans man, trans woman is possible. But for people who identify how the doctor assigned at birth and how my development stages happened, and I feel like a man and a woman, then you are a cis man and a cis woman. So that is a binary structure that the society has, right? So where these, now when the trans kid is born, the trans is not able, the kid is not able to understand these dynamics, and the kid feels completely left out. So that's where, because of the biological aspects of the trans person, also the person is not being able to identify in the majority of the society, and that's where the parents could disown the child. They become one of the part of the garima grahas of the houses of the hijra community and the culture. So hijra is all about the culture that they have, and they have this guru chela system. So Guru Chela system is basically, once you go into one of these houses, you have a guru who takes care, like a mother who takes care of all these chelas. Chelas are basically the
Followers, yeah,
disciples, the
disciples.
followers of the guru, and the guru is the one who takes care of them, who feeds them, who takes care of their ration, who does their day to day upbringing and all that, and trains them to go for mangti. Mangti is begging. Mangti. Now you know that you are like this. You don't have education. You will not have any aspirations in life, which is again, it is a very much regressive culture that's there, because there's no proper education. There's no access to anything that a cis person would have. So that's why we call about the cis privilege, which a trans person will not have, right? So that's where a trans person is denied of this privilege, again because of the societal stigma that's there about the trans community, the stigma that's already been existing ever centuries in the LGBTQ community. And that's where it's a very important aspect, because a person's development stages is in a way restricted just in begging, just in sex work, and there is also called as bidai, which is blessings. You go for, whenever a child is born or wherever a marriage is happening, there are these cultures of hijra community. They go to these houses and they bless and they get money. So that's their daily livelihood, with only which the trans people are able to come up, the hijra people are able to come up in life, and that's how the structure is. And it's like a chain. It's there in Mumbai. There are 7 gharanas, there are 7 colonies of these cycle that are happening, and these are very prevalent in India. So that's how a trans person eventually, because there's a lot of socio psychological effects that a person is having. There's a lot of psychological restrictions. There's a lot of psychological tension that a person is having, because they are not getting the same rights as a cis person is getting, and that's where the trauma builds up. The person starts becoming aggressive. Maybe there are so many important needs that are again not given to the person. I am a psychology student, and there are, you have your basic needs that are not met. Your, maybe the shelter is not really great there, the hunger is not always satisfied, then comes the belongingness is not given, your social needs are not met, then becomes your self-esteem needs, yourself, how do you identify yourself as. So these important needs are not met for the person, right? And then the person is deigned to become a bit aggressive. The person is taught that if it's not given, you need to grab it, you need to ask for it. That's how the maybe that's how people learn, that's how people, and that's why the general public would feel very much disassociated with, and would very much feel scared to even talk to a trans person maybe. But otherwise I think trans people are very much normal. I mean, I don't even know why do I even have to explain this, because we also eat, we also drink water, we also we are very much normal like anyone else. So our notion, our perception needs to be changed when we approach a person. I think
You look at the personhood of
we need to
the other
understand the
person.
personhood of a trans person. We need to understand their struggles. We are not different. We are treated differently, right? We are very much same. We are very much similar to you. We are of the same family, but we are treated differently. We are looked in a different way. So that has to be changed, and that only happens through dialogues and discussions, and maybe inclusion and representation, which always needs to happen.
You were talking about the gharanas, they come and they are taken care. Where do they get the funds from? How does it run?
Have you watched Gangubai Kathiawadi? You have watched the movie, yeah. So that has nothing to do with the trans people, but this is more of a sex work. But how she propagates the chain of sex work, and she's very much proud of having a sex work and all that. Similarly, in the trans community, people in the trans community are having some tie-ups. They are having some people who sponsor them, who take care of them. It is, but majority of the money is again through begging, through sex work. That's the reason you see the infrastructure is not very much up to the mark. People in trans community don't stay in a hosh posh building. They stay in a slum area. Majority of the trans people in Mumbai and in India, you see them living in slum area. Only the ones who have got access in education, job, they are doing very much great. They are like, they're very much there in all the big forums, and they are participating, and they are making money out of it, which is their life, which is their journey. But it's not the same journey for all the people from the hijra community. They have their own way of life. They do it majorly through begging, sex work, all the visiting the occasions and all. These are the major avenues where they can make money.
No, you spoke about meeting needs. We have, the pyramid of needs.
Correct.
So in that we have the basic needs, then psychological needs, social
Correct.
needs.
Yes.
That pyramid builds. I might be wrong in the order, but that
Yeah,
pyramid
these are the
builds upon
pyramid,
the
yeah.
basic needs. Now, when we, as a cis man and cis woman, we look at the needs, we don't find much difference. It is like you get. But from the lens that you look at, it is very different. I go to a cinema theater and I look at only two toilets, man and a woman. Why not a neutral gender toilets? No, but that is from my lens. But when you look at the situation, you look at the difference everywhere. I want you to address the aspect of needs that are not met for the trans
I think
persons.
that's very, very important to discuss as well, because so in my initial days of my counseling, also before I came out as a trans woman, initial days of my counseling, I was very much scared to even accept it publicly, to even come out as a trans woman openly, because my therapist made me aware the reason why you're not coming out is because you're going to lose these needs. You're going to, for example, now the social need that you said, I'm going to actually get cut off by all these functional aspects of the society. People will start looking at me in a different way. My own, maybe my previous connections are no longer going to talk to me like the way they were talking to me before. People will discuss a lot about me. I will be, I will be like
Talk over the table.
over the table. I'll be a discussion. I'll be the gossip, which I'm anyways happy to be. But otherwise, I will be the major focus. I'm going to be the major discussion there. I'm going to be the black sheep of the family. You can put it in that way. So I'm going to get cut off all these functional societal aspect, where it was very much easy for me to be for a cis. When I was a cis man, it was very much easy for me to get all these things. My education was more easy to get. Had it not, if I started transitioning during my college days itself, it would have been very much difficult for me to get an admission in college also, right?
Exactly.
So I would miss out my education, I would miss out a job, maybe I would miss out on these major aspects of life, right? I was very much privileged enough that I started my transitioning after I was financially independent, after I got a job. like, because I identified as a cis man, or I would express my gender expression was of a cis person, and that's where the education and my master's and my degree was very much easier for me, right? Whereas that's the reason why I could pick up from there. I could financially get independent and then start transitioning. But for many trans people, that will not be the case. For them, it's going to be very difficult, because for the ones who start transitioning right from their from the high schools, maybe from their college, maybe, and that's where people who identify as trans people, they don't get that enough of moral support, that enough of social support that's required, and that's where even they're not getting the enough of education. The access to education has been denied, access to job has been denied. So that's the whole aspect of when we say cis privilege. What is a cis privilege versus a trans privilege, right? There is something called as glass ceiling effect. That's basically you work the same number of hours that a man works, but you get less paid, because maybe your work is not very much recognized as much as a man's work is recognized, and you get less paid, but you're working maybe the extra hours than a man is working, or your suggestions are not taken that seriously in the corporate, because it's coming from your lens, it's coming from your perceptions, or your opinion is not being that strongly taken, right? So that's again a topic. We call it as a glass ceiling effect, or we call it as a tokenism that's there. We just hire people from the community, from the trans community, but they are not given a leadership role. They're not given important decision making roles in the organization,
Just
right?
because your sexuality
Just
and
because
gender
you are
as
the minority of the society, or you're a gender minority, or your sexuality is different, right? So these aspects are there, very much visible in today's world also, when we are still talking about gender, when we're still having a dialogue about trans people and all that.
don't you believe that safety should be the right instead of sympathy?
Safety is one of the basic human rights of according to again that theory, but it's a very basic thing, which is the bare minimum that any human being deserves, because it's again a part of the dignity of human life, right? Safety is, again, it's a non-negotiable thing. You can't expect safety just because you have reached this segment of your life, or you have achieved something. It should not be justified. Safety cannot be justified. If a person is born differently, if a person is carries differently in public, I think the similar avenues has to be developed for any has to be developed for everyone, irrespective of your identity.
When I speak about safety, as much as people say that a girl or a woman should not walk alone at late night, so it can it be applied to a trans person?
Of course.
Any person walking alone, it is a matter of a safety. How do you look at the insecurity that you face as a community, as a person?
I sometimes really feel that trans people are sometimes more susceptible to violence more than a cis woman or a woman.
What sort of violence?
The very aspect, now you know that there is an ALSA judgment which has also come up, where if a trans person is being raped or being sexually harassed, the abuser or the accused won't get a the sanction to prison imprisonment is not for a long duration, it's just for 2 years or something. But versus if that is done for a woman, it's for 5 years. There is some change in the duration of the imprisonment. So you also understand the very fact that constitutionally, also legally also, even if your threat to violence is there, but there is the consequence, or the safety measures are not that strong, that not aggravated, that it's not that strong versus for a woman. But for a woman, it's very much strong. So but because again, I don't know why there is again the societal notions that a trans person needs to be few, the trans person is no longer a woman, she's still a man, or that's again maybe it's coming from that lens. So a trans person again is more susceptible to violence, because again, the stigma that's there, just because of the stigma, because of the way we are looked at, the way we are mocked at. So these things are very much there, and people don't take it seriously. People think that the notion of a trans person is all bogus. It's all it's there are longer like they are no big of a human, or they don't deserve respect, they don't have a dignity. And that's where it's all popping up from. And that's why the the seriousness for justice, the seriousness for legal action, or in terms of legal terms of how a trans person has to be navigating the world, is very much not given focus on. In also constitutionally speaking, in also maybe trying to bring up certain policies also, they are not really given that grip as much as it is given to a cis person or a cis woman.
Can you give some examples of some injustice that was happening to someone or personally to you, which you find it very, surprising? It's not happening to a cis man or a cis woman, but it is happening to you.
Yeah, very much. Now, when it comes to legal aspect, let me give you my own example. Um, so when I joined Godrej, I didn't openly come out as a trans woman. I was dressing up like a guy only. But then eventually, after 1 year almost, I came out as a trans woman. And for me, that time, it was important for me also to change my house, because the place where I was staying, it's a different setup. It's a very Mada sort of a colony where families and all were staying, and it was a very different setup. So I was not comfortable psychologically, mentally, to be there and transition and start transitioning. And that's where I decided to leave this place and go somewhere else. And now to do that, to get a house, it was so difficult, brother. It was so difficult. Like I almost it almost took me 2 months to get one house, you know, because I was also, I was carrying myself as a woman, and I was also talking to different brokers on call. I was telling them about my identity, and at the same time, I was at least trying to pitch them that I'm a working profession. I work in Godrej as an HR, and I'm doing well, and I need a house to stay. But I was so many times I was denied a housing. I was denied to stay a house just because of my identity. So you see that housing and rental processing is so difficult, just because you're a trans person, just because you're a woman, you're a trans woman, and you're not in a way meeting those expectations of a cis woman also. I travel every day almost 2 hours, very far. And I get it very much from people who tell me, Ki, why did you choose? Why did you take so long? Why did you take your house so far? Why did you choose this house? I didn't choose this house. I didn't take by my will. I took it out of compulsion. I took it out of compulsion. I didn't choose, like, I want this house, I didn't have the privilege to
Privilege of
choose.
choosing.
No, again, that's the privilege that a cis person would have, not me. Right? And jo bhi mila, I have to go for it. And that's my battle. I have signed up for this. I have to I have to bear the cost for this, right? I've in a way got used to it. I know it's a very big deal for many people. People will be like, why do you travel so far? But I think I'm still happy where I am. I'm very much happy for running a house for myself. I have a own family there. I got my own support, social support. There are people who are looking after me in my house there. So I have people, they live by themselves also, but we are there for each other. Now again, there can be many angles to see. There can be many things to focus why I didn't get. Maybe that's their own understanding of a trans person. Maybe they would think that she's only meant for begging and sex work. Let's not take her here. Maybe they have a notion that she's very aggressive. Let's not take her here. So these are the angles, these are the belief system that people have in our society, and that's where I was denied a house. But eventually, after almost 2 months, I got one house, and that's like a lucky house. Even in the last minute, I got a house there, but the broker called me. I brought all my tempo, lorry, luggage, everything, and the broker is telling me, sorry ma'am, the owner is denying now. So I didn't have any other option. I called another broker immediately, and he told me, I will give you a house, and I got a house. So even at the last minute, there is so much of uncertainty that a trans person faces in the society. And when we don't legally understand these things, when we are not enforcing legal terms, you see the consequences, what happens, right? Even when you're professionally sound, even when you're doing well professionally and financially, you still have a transphobic lens that people look at you. So that's something we need. We have lawyers, we have trans lawyers, But yeah, I met her in June and all that. But there are now people who are trying to change the system. There is an inclusion that's happening in all the facets of life. We have transgender people in professions, in schools, we in academic field. We have transgender people in the legal field. There are advocates and lawyers who are transgender people. There are trans people like me in the corporate world who are giving jobs to other people. You know,
That's nice. Job
exactly.
to other.
Like I'm giving job to other cis people, not trans people. We have trans people in sports. You know, we have trans people in the fashion world, in the movies. So we are there. We are always visible. It's only that maybe we are denied the visibility. We are denied not to be more out, not to be more loud, and not to be more ourselves sometimes. So that is a battle that every trans person has.
No, as much as you have said that there are people who are outshining in various aspects, various areas, as a lawyers, as a fashion models,
Yes.
as in corporate world.
Yeah.
There was a recent case in Chennai where in Loyola College there was a professor from your community.
I've seen that
Yeah.
post, yes.
And it is a famous community. No, I
even,
have.
even my mother messaged me and told me, see, there is a trans person who became a professor in Loyola College. So she told me this news as well. Yeah.
In fact, it's such a great news.
It's a very
that
great news.
they have been recognized.
Yes.
But if I have to put it the other way,
Hmm.
the news was celebrated
Hmm.
because it was not normal,
Correct.
right?
Hmm.
You are celebrating it, very good. You are doing it a very good job that people get more awareness. That is one
True,
part,
that is one part.
which is a very good part.
Okay.
On the other hand, you are celebrating just because it is not normal, which means the society still considers it as an abnormal. That is a signal you are indirectly sending people. Now, how do you think our schools, colleges, our places of work and places of education, how should the curriculum in schools be? You and I belong to a church.
Yes.
What do you expect it from the institutions?
Yes. So when we celebrate these achievements of trans people, going into profession of academia, of medical doctors and all that, yes, it is a revolution. It is a breakthrough that's happening because now we are in a context where the minority segment is not thriving. We are in a context where the minority segment is supposed to be looked down at. But when we do something like this, it's like we are doing it. Even we are achieving life. We are showing that the world that there's everything possible, even despite us going through a lot of discrimination and lot of stigma in our life, right? And that's something we need to celebrate. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we need to also normalize these things, that we need to bring up our other trans people. We need to have these conversations. We need to talk these things in all the spaces of our life. When it comes to our education institutions, we need representation of trans people. Just imagine you as a scholar, you as a professor, you are teaching your children and you are bringing a subject of boys and girls. But do you even know there can be kids who don't identify themselves as a boy or a girl? They just want to be identified as a person. That's basically non-binary person. They don't relate to being a guy or a girl, but someone who is not very much happy. Just imagine a child also, maybe in an all girls school, she is not comfortable to wear skirts on an everyday basis, and that can feel so discomfortable. That's called gender dysphoria that can happen to this child, right? So because there is no visible queer identities in the classroom, the child can go through a lot of mental pressure, mental tension that's going within the child, right? And that's where we need to bring up these topics of sexuality. We need to bring up these topics about orientation, gender identity right from our schools. We need our curriculums to include sex education right from our beginning, at least from your high schools, so that people are talking these things in a healthy way.
Or even if the sex education is there, we should include these
We should
groups.
include. I think homosexuality and LGBTQ aspect, it's so strongly should be a part of sex education. That is a crux of sex education. You can't just say ki boy loves girl and girl loves boy and finish. No, I think homosexuality, there is a theory by Carl Jung. I've studied psychology, so there's a theory which says Carl Jung believes that all humans are born bisexuals by birth. It's only through the societal, aspects we choose whom we are attracted to. But biologically speaking, we are all designed as bisexuals. We are all designed for diverse attraction. That's psychological aspect of perception that we need to accept. That's one of the teachings of Carl Jung. So we need to bring up these teachings right from adolescent level of teenage school, children, and that would actually help a lot of people who identify differently, who identify as trans people, transgender people, who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexuals, and all that. That's something that would help a lot of children in the education institution. Similarly, in our church, I always would have been so happy if there was some visibility of queer narrative in the church. If there was, at least I'm not saying make a big change in the church. I'm not asking you to put rainbow flags in the church. I'm asking you that at least bring trans people and LGBTQ people in your prayers of the faithful. Why don't we include making one of the prayers of the faithful for the LGBTQ people and for the trans community? Why don't we bring that on our church texts? Why don't we bring that on our prayers when we specifically pray for this community? Because we are also we are a community in the whole, right? So that's what I feel, that inclusion and representation, when we bring inclusion, then the representation happens, then people start coming out, then people say ki, father, I feel this is what I feel about myself, this is what I would want to confess. And the priest or the authoritative figure has to be that approachable, that you need to be so approachable, you need to make the person feel that nothing is wrong, you are very much safe, you are very much worth as much as someone who is a non-LGBTQ person. When we say that God has created the sky, the earth, the trees, the plantation, and God said this is good. So when he created human beings, and when he specifically created trans women, trans men, don't you think this is also good? Why is it that we are not good? We are not a God's creation, right? And that's where we need to put that angle in the church. We need to understand that every human being, despite their sexuality, despite their expression, despite their gender identity, everyone is welcome, everyone is children of God, and everyone needs to be as welcoming and as hospitable as it should be for a cis person, right? And I think that aspect is something that the church needs to talk about today, that the church needs to inculcate the values, how to be more inclusive, how to propel the ideas of the gospel for the trans people, understanding that transgender people are as much as equal part of the faithful.
And as much as you say, church needs to accept, I believe it also needs to start from the grassroots level.
Yeah,
People whom we live with in the church,
true,
whom we spend, the mass with,
true,
we participate in the Eucharist.
true,
I don't know how many of them are willing to say, peace be with you.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that people would frown at a trans person while giving peace be with you. That's again difficult for them. So yeah, we need to bring, when there are representations in the faithful, when there are trans people there, we have to regularize these things. We need to normalize people approaching a trans person, and that how effortless it has to be. And there are reasons why, there are also reasons why the church is in a way stringent in terms of coming into acceptance, maybe because yes, in the past, the texts in the Bible that are there, the Sodom and Gomorrah, or you have certain scriptures which in a way determines and interprets that homosexuality is denied, it's a sin, it's a God's thing. But again, there is again a wrong interpretation or the distortion of the text of which has happened, right? It's basically, Sodom and Gomorrah is not about homosexuality, it's more about the adultery aspect of why a human is doing against God's will, right? So that misinterpretation has come over the years, and again it's in several lens. It's in the lens of the religion, it's in the lens of the religion happened because of the colonial power, because of the white supremacy, and that's where the hatred has started. That's where the whole distortion of the belief of queer narrative existing has happened. Last year when I was there in the Pune conference, there were so many amazing scholars who spoke about queer narrative in the Catholic Church, where there were visibly out queer people as scholars in the past who were interpreting Bible, who were propagating the faith, and they were a part of the LGBT community. I think there were some saints also who identified as queer back then, but their history has been removed. There has been an erasure of history of the queer narratives in the Roman Catholic Church, right? And these aspects are not very much out in the theological field or in the philosophical field. These are not very much spoken, not very much encouraged to talk about, because the visibility is less and the stigma is more, and nobody wants to talk about these things because these are very very sensitive topics. These are very sensitive topics, and nobody wants to easily, and again these are sensitive and these are not a very easily navigating topics. This is not like something we can talk with a cup of chai and talk about it. It's a very serious topic. It's basically life and death situation, right? So I completely understand that these things are there in the Roman Catholic Church, and we need to go back to those texts. We need to reinterpret the Bible. We need to, when catechism is happening, we need to tell our kids that God created a man, God created a woman, God also created people with different identities and genders and sexual orientation. This is because we all are a part of God's creation. That has to be the dialogue. That has to be the way we can make everyone sensitized.
So not only in schools but also in catechism classes.
Definitely.
Yeah, we need to educate them.
We need to educate people about identities, about queer, gender, sexuality. These are very important aspects.
I strongly believe Jesus himself would have told in a gospel that some are born eunuchs, some make themselves, which means mentioning to priests, those who choose this life. So life is not only about sexuality, it must beyond that. Personhood is not limited to sexuality or a gender. It's much beyond. Though Catholic Church might focus on procreation, I think one of the main reasons why Catholic Church was not in favor of those who are identifying themselves as other sex, like a trans man or trans woman, is because there is no procreation happening. But that should not limit a personhood.
And that's also, I feel, that's there. Procreation alone is there, but you can't just deny someone's dignity and someone's self-worth. It's hampering someone's dignity and self-worth. So that means if someone who's not able to procreate, are there less of someone than who is able to procreate? Are you trying to say that? Why don't we change our lenses according to the context of the person? Why don't we change our interpretation according to the person's way of life, according to the person's upbringing, the person's orientation? Because I don't think God is coming up with a rule that this has to be the norm, and if you are not going according to this rule, you are not loved. I don't think we have such a stringent God, honestly.
Christianity is based on love,
Yeah.
and with love comes this dignity, respect
And self-worth.
yeah, self-worth. And as Christianity has taught us to love, we continue to spread love. So as God himself has taught us to love, and you have been so loving person, and I have great admiration for your presence here today and for openly sharing your thoughts, your insights. And I'm sure from today many people will have a different outlook towards people, those who identify other than cis man and cis woman.
Yes.
There are many people in the world out there who need respect, love and dignity. It is not their need, it's their right.
Yes.
And we need to take that forward. And thank you so much, Rochelle, for joining us on the podcast today. And
Thank
we
you
look
so much,
forward
Batul.
to meeting you and to looking forward to see you making a difference in the world out there. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for doing this podcast. I think you are one of the breaking barriers sort of a man who is bringing these conversations, because it's really not easy. I know you must have given a lot of thought before you come up with this. You must have also maybe got discouragement from your seniors or anyone who taught that why are you doing this? This is not how it's supposed to do. But you still did it out of your will, out of your rigor, and that can actually bring a lot of change. That can bring a lot of change in the society and in the church, and you are doing it. So that's a great thing what you're doing.
Thank you, Rochelle. Do pray for me.
Definitely.
And I do assure you of our prayers, because we both are children of God.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, brother.